Our next speaker probably needs no introduction to a lot of you folks, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. Malone, he's the CEO of Gulf Shores Orange Beach Tourism, and he's going to talk a little bit about what the needs of the tourism industry are down here in Alabama.
Okay, thank you and good afternoon. Glad to be here, glad to be among friends. I'm going to try to be brief because I know there's a lot of people here from the seafood industry and you'll have deep concerns there. We share concerns over on the tourism side. Give you a little brief of what our tourism industry means to our local and state economy. We hosted in 2018 6.6 million guests in Baldwin County alone. That's about 2.5 million family units that, just like you and I, they worked hard, saved the money, going on vacation, coming down here on vacation. When they returned home, they had left behind $4.7 billion in our local economy. That circulated throughout the economy in the form of over 53,000 jobs for Baldwin Countyans, over $1.5 billion in wages and salaries. So when we disrupt that, depending on the time of year and the days of the week and whatever, we disrupt that, we have a large potential for economic stress or decline, if you will. I want to begin by thanking Don Swan. Last year when we started seeing all the things you were seeing about the awful things that were going on the news about happening in Southwest Florida, and I began that, I was tracking that chart that y'all had up here a few minutes ago, and each day I would print it out, and the next day I'd compare yesterday's to today. And I was building my own mental trend line, and I saw it moving this way, or at least moving up towards Tampa, coming in somewhat our direction. I called Don, and I said, we need to know a little more about this excessive that's going on down in Florida. Is that excessiveness got potential to come this way? And he came over and held a workshop, and I was expecting something, I guess, maybe a little more scientific, but Don in his way facilitated the discussion, and the room was full of workers that work for the city of Orange Beach or the city of Gulf Shores that work on the beach. And questions about, okay, if we have a fish kill, what risk are these people at picking up the dead fish? Where can we dispose of them? A lot of good common sense things that Don came back with a paper that helped answer a lot of those questions after doing some research. Somebody did it, somebody in your staff. You had team members. I think Missy was there and Steve too. So anyhow, those are great things, and they help at least our leaders get a handle on things. A lot of that visitation doesn't all happen just in June, July, Labor Day, 4th of July, Memorial Day. It's happening nowadays almost year round. But with events that we have created or bought or imported, however you want to say it, throughout the year, we have events right out on the beach, right out on the sand, in the water in the form of triathlons. We had late May, we have a Hangout Music Festival that has over 40,000 people per day on the beach, out on the sand. Shrimp Festival is right at the beach each year, each fall. And that's one of the things that seems to be most vulnerable for us from a red tide point of view because of the time of year. The calendars of both public schools and colleges are moving to more and more with a fall break. It's something kind of new in the trends, but that's usually the first week of October, the second week of October, the third week of October, kind of spread through that period. Shrimp Festival is always the second weekend of October. Now, I emphasize October because last year when this thing was starting to, once it gets over the Florida Panhandle, we really pay close attention to it. And it was actually, it hit Escambia County, and I was told it was on the east side of Escambia County. But the map, if it's a county, it shows the whole county on that deal. So we were watching that, and right before our Shrimp Festival was due, and learned that the testing that ADM has been doing up until that point always stopped at the end of September. So there was no testing going on in October, and some conversation I think occurred between the mayor and the ADM people, and they got it extended into October at least, and that would be a pretty good benchmark, I think, to the end of October. I talked to some of the one of the city officials this morning on the way over here, asking him what could I ask for, and he said, number one, ask for a continuation of testing through the end of October. He said number two, I believe, and he believes that the testing is only done once a week. I'm sure that's probably a budget item, whatever. He said, we really need it more than once a week. If they test on Monday and we put 300,000 or 400,000 people in town on Thursday, we've got a gap. And if it was tested clear on Monday. So he did mention that both of our cities have personnel on the beach 365 days a year. Maybe in the form of lifeguards, paramedics, police patrols, public works kind of patrols, clean up, the ones that clean up the trash and all those other things. So they have personnel out on the beach, and this is just a what if. What if it's permissible under protocols to train a number of those personnel to actually do the sampling there? That's not costing anybody anything in this room. They're out there, they can do it. If they're trained, and if that, it maybe protocols don't allow for that, I don't know. So there is those opportunities for resource partnering is there. I know, didn't talk to Orange Beach, but I know they would be on board as well. We take great pride in emphasizing the safety and welfare of our guests as they come. That 6.5 million or so are individuals like you and I, as I said a while ago. So when storms are approaching, or oil spills are approaching, or anything, we being both the cities and the Convention Visitors Bureau, we have the two welcome centers. We do everything we can to hand out, pass out, transmit accurate from trusted sources of information. Like our Baldwin EMA, our two cities, in the case of this, it'd be whatever health department says, whatever. Keep in mind, somebody mentioned, well, we just need 24-hour warning. That won't work. These guests who have spent their money to come down here are here for anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 days. They don't watch the local news. They care not about it. A lot of them don't even want to watch the national news because they want to escape all those things that upset them every night about national news. So communicating with them is not an easy, getting the message to them. We have that problem with riptides. We even have a problem when there's tropical storms or hurricanes approaching. So we, between our business community, our lodging managers, our restaurant managers, we get the word to them, and they help get the word to the customers as they're walking in the door or as they're waking up in their room up there. So we've got a network that helps that process and information. But saved the money, came down here, spent a bunch of money. You got to really, really have a big reason to ask for them to get out of the water. Dangerous riptide won't get them out of the water. I don't know what will, but it is a challenge. So, but if there's some education that's got to be done to outreach of those guests. With that, we want to be a partner in any way we can, working through whoever, Sea Grant, whatever, and I would welcome any suggestions of what we could do at a local level to help inform the guests in any way. Any questions? And I apologize. If your schedule got disrupted because of me, I apologize. It wasn't my fault. I worked for two mayors, and one of them wanted me by 4 o'clock. So.
I work with the seafood industry, but maybe we'll ask this question in our session too. But for prediction, you mentioned 1 day is not enough. Like, how much prediction ahead is useful? Because I'm a fan of that. That makes sense to me. With, my training, we want to predict this. But if we can only predict 2 days ahead, is that useful? Like, how far ahead do we need to be able to predict for it to be useful to you? Well,
I'll start by saying 1 day is better than no days.
Okay.
All right. It would depend on the situation. I mentioned the Hangout Music Festival. They will spend a few $1 million just setting up. So from an economic standpoint of view, the earlier they can be told, quit setting up, you know, we're gonna have it, it's gonna be here with a 90%, or 80, even 80% risk. You know, they'll all collaborate, and the cities will always make the final decision based on what they get from public health and everyone else about whether they need to shut this event down and not hold the event at all. Even the Shrimp Festival, which is a locally produced event, will spend $100,000 to $150,000 in setup, and not to mention what I said earlier, a lot of people got in their car in Nashville and drove down here for that event. I mean, so, you know, it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. But
And so follow up on that. What about the cost of false positives? Because I can imagine from the seafood industry, predicting that it's coming, there's a cost if we get shut down or if we make decisions because we think it's coming and then it doesn't. And I can imagine the pushback potentially from somebody that broke down, stopped setting up their festival.
It's certainly, and that goes into the equation of the thought process and decision making that the cities make every time there's a storm threat. You know, if Ivan's coming dead at us like it was, there wasn't any decision. When one is one side or the other of us, it may or may not come at us. It really gets to be, you know, they have to all weigh out everything they know at the time and make the decision at the time. And if later on that backfired, then whether it backfired and I know both mayors would rather it backfire on the side of safety as opposed to money.
Saw one other hand up. Somebody else have a question for her?
Back in the back.
Well, I was just going to comment, in Florida, I'm from Florida, even if there is red tide present, you know, sometimes you can have a perfectly pleasant day on the beach. It's really dependent on, you know, the concentrations, if it's right up on the beach or if it's a little bit offshore, and which way the wind is blowing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it would be really hard to say, we're gonna close down, you know, a triathlon or something like that, because we think it might move into the area in a few days. Because it, you know, it might, but the conditions might still be fine.
Well, that event, just for example, the triathlon you use for example, that event actually has a standby for bad weather in the Gulf, and that is because of too rough a weather or whatever. And instead of doing, they always open with a swim. Instead of doing a swim, a run, a swim, a bike, and then a run, they do a run, a bike, and a run. So, you know, it's kind of like, thought about the typical summer thunderstorm. Everybody has to get off the beach. They got a place to go. It's called the Outlet Mall. If you don't believe it, they'll all go there. That's where get the traffic.
In most cases, you have to wait and see what the conditions are like at that time.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, and it's, say, everything is kind of a day-to-day situation.
Yeah, time for another. You brought it up, Herb, and Allison brought it up. We've heard it before, it's like more data. We need more data. Not an uncommon thing to hear. But what you brought up, and it's kind of the question maybe to Adrian on public health. You know, there are programs now that do volunteer water quality monitoring. What I'm not sure of, if that data is quality controlled, you know, if it's QAQC enough to be able to be used, and if it's not, what would it take for that to happen? You know, Water Watch is a pretty large program, but there are others. I'm not sure if they even collect that sort of data, but, you know, if with limited resources, certainly that as you said, partnership with whether it's you know, employees of the cities or volunteers, you know, that's a pretty large number of people spread around. And if data really is, you know, one of 5 or 6 things that we need more of to be able to develop a model that goes out beyond one day, then, you know, maybe at some point that discussion will be had here today about, you know, what are the opportunities for volunteer water quality monitoring, specifically perhaps.
I appreciate that comment, Don. We are going to move on and we're going to let you get out of here.
Okay, thank you very much.
But I do want to say to that, and any other folks that might be from Florida here too, if you want to weigh in on this. I do know that in Florida that some of the lifeguards are trained to take samples and that they actually report in conditions. So if you wanted to, you know, speak to that just real briefly.
Real briefly, Yeah, I mean, that's, you can look that up online, it's most beach conditions reporting system, and they're not taking water samples per se, they're literally reporting their experiences. Are there dead fish? Is there respiratory irritation? But they'll also report riptides or macroalgae or other beach conditions, but it's a whole slew of beaches you can check before you go and see what it's like.
We have that as far as,
That's, yeah, there's training.
we have that daily as far as riptides. Both the cities report into each other through a real broad network that goes out to all the hotel and condo people too. That whether they're flying, it's red tide, red flag day or yellow flag day, whatever. That's worked really well.
I don't see why, whether Orange Beach or whether you're a farmer on Mobile Bay, that you could not get a microscope and have a program where you're trained to count Grania cells. It's a lot cheaper to do that than to have a tissue test done. And even take a photograph of it and send it in for confirmation and collect the data that way. That way, I know whether I have 5,000 cells and I got 6 weeks before my oysters become toxic, or I got 100,000, I got a week, or I got 1 million, and I got to shut down right away.
So I'm gonna pause it right there. These are exactly the types of things we want to be talking about today. And in these sessions, we do have a lot more time built in for questions and answers during the breakout sessions, and we'll have time at the end too to talk about next steps, what y'all want to see moving forward, where we might be able to establish some partnerships here and get them all moving on some of this. But I'm gonna move us along. Thank you so much, Herb. Everybody, round of applause.